What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich, back to bring you your MLB props for June the 7th. Yesterday, really light slate. We had a rainout between Cleveland and Texas. They have a doubleheader today. We had Cincinnati and Arizona actually play 7 innings, ultimately to get rained out. So that's why we didn't want to attack those games. And while I did like some of the Arizona hitters, good thing we didn't play them because Hunter Green was on his game yesterday. We did pick Starlin Marte to go over, and he went over in the first inning. Jose Ramirez got rained out, as I mentioned. And Yordan Alvarez let us down, man. Robbie Ray got beat up by Kyle Tucker, Jose Altuve. But for whatever reason, Yordan Alvarez couldn't get involved, walked once, and that was it. End of the day for Yordan Alvarez, I think the biggest problem, right, and I mentioned this yesterday, is that he's really struggled against lefty specialists that come in and face him, and that kind of showed itself again yesterday. Once Robbie Ray went out, that was it. He basically had no chances, so that wasn't great overall for him. But let's get into today because there is a big slate of games. It's doubleheaders. I mean, I'm not touching on the doubleheaders at all, but I did find some unders. And so if you do want to play some unders, you're intrigued by some unders, I do have 3 to watch your eye on. You know, I don't love to play unders, but these ones, again, they popped in the model. So I figured I would show them to you guys, and we can talk about them a little bit. So let's dive into it right now. So starting overall, we have Joey Votto, Brandon Drury, Jock Peterson, Tommy Pham, Julio Rodriguez, Austin Riley, Bryce Harper, and Wilson Contreras, all projected for overs. And then Kevin Kiermeier, Giancarlo Stanton, and Yoan Moncada projected for unders. So let's start with the Cincinnati-Arizona matchup. They're up against, or Cincinnati is up against Tyler Gilbert, who has been pretty bad. But I want to point out overall that a lot of these stats are driven off his one game that he played in the past month against the Dodgers, where he allowed 4 home runs and 6 earned runs. So that's why his pitch factor is extremely high, bumping up these projections significantly for the Cincinnati Reds. So he is a lefty, so naturally we want to maybe stay away from Joey Votto, because Joey Votto, while he's been playing better, we don't necessarily want that lefty-on-lefty matchup. We don't necessarily want to. I do like Brandon Drury batting second for the Reds. He's a right-handed hitter. He's playing very well. I think he's got a great matchup. Only a 6.5 line on PrizePicks. That is one I will be playing, and I do like. Tommy Pham is interesting, right? I didn't talk about how he's terrible up against Madison Bumgarner, but he was. He didn't get a single hit. He didn't get on base yesterday. Even though he had a massive projection, the data said maybe fade Tommy Pham, and today you see he's 0-2 versus Tyler Gilbert, so not terrible, small sample. Maybe he can get it going. But again, the only guy I really like in this matchup is Brandon Drury. So Brandon Drury will be a core play, and I highly suggest you play him. He's been getting on base. He can steal bases. He's been scoring runs with the guys behind him. Yes, it will require Votto and Pham to drive him in, but we've seen Farmer play very well. Tyler Stevenson as well playing very well for Cincinnati. So a lot of guys who can drive him in, and as well, you know, we love that ballpark in Cincinnati. It's been great. The weather looks fine. I was looking at the weather reports today. There's a small chance of a little bit of rain, but overall looking like they're going to play. So that's really the only matchup, I believe, in this slate that has any fear of rain. The rest of them all look pretty good overall. And then the Chicago-Baltimore game in Baltimore has another potential for rain, but I'll touch on that when I get to Wilson Contreras. Let's get to Jock Peterson here, who, interestingly enough, has been playing really, really well over the last 14. Even over the last 7, you see he's averaging 10 points up against German Marquez, who has been terrible this season. Doesn't matter whether he's at Coors Field or he's on the road, he's been god-awful. You see the pitch value here for Jock Peterson is a 13, which is insane, and that's mainly driven by the ineptitude of German Marquez's fastball, where you have an 11 pitch factor here, and you can see, you know, a lot of these San Francisco Giants could have made the list, but Jock was the one who stuck out the most because of the power, because of how he's been playing, and just because, you know, Jock Peterson, well, he doesn't play overly well against Marquez. It's worth pointing out, 25 at-bats, hitting 160 with 2 home runs, 2 RBIs, and a steal. I don't think the German Marquez that he has played in the past is the same one he'll be playing today, so I don't mind it overall. But if you are fearful and you don't want to play German Marquez, I think play Jock Peterson because of that past history. You think he can still get the best of him. I'm okay with passing on him, but know that you are passing on a guy who has allowed, I believe it's at least 3 runs in his last 4 starts and at least 4 runs in his last 6 starts. He's been playing really, really bad. For whatever reason, he hasn't been able to capture his form of years past and has been really bad this season. So Jock Peterson is a fine play. Maybe not a core play if it's not the way you want to play it, but Drury for sure. Jock is a flex at worst or a core play. And then Pham, like I said, I'm passing on Julio Rodriguez is interesting. So he only has a PrizePicks line of 5 because he's up against Justin Verlander. We know Justin Verlander, potential Cy Young Award winner, who has won, obviously, Cy Youngs in the past, phenomenal pitcher. This P-Val is not great, but it's worth pointing out that the last time they faced each other, I believe under a month ago, Julio Rodriguez jacked him up for a 2-run home run in the first inning. Now, that was in Seattle, not in Houston, where the game is today, and that's worth pointing out because people look at Houston and they view it as a ballpark that is favorable to hitters, but this year in particular, the pitch factor for Houston has been really low, and that may be some of the reason why we're not seeing as many home runs from the Houston Astros, whether it's they're doing humidor stuff, they're altering the balls when they're playing in Houston. The ball is not flying out of Houston the way it has in years past, and so for that reason, it is advantageous for Justin Verlander and his ability to keep the ball in the ballpark. But if you do want to gamble on Julio Rodriguez, he's averaging 11 over his last 14, averaging 11 over his last 7. He's been playing very, very well, and as I've mentioned, he's a guy who he can walk and get a steal, and if he gets a steal, he hits his PrizePicks line, and that's one of the reasons why I really like him in this matchup. And like I mentioned, he did only go 1 for 5 in that past matchup, but that one hit was a 2-run shot off of Justin Verlander, so I'm sure Verlander will be a little bit more cautious when pitching to Julio Rodriguez today, but overall, I think he's a fine play if you do want to play him. Now getting into Austin Riley, the cleanup hitter for the Atlanta Braves. The Braves have a great matchup today against Cole Irvin, and I do really like all the Braves, but more importantly, I like Riley because of how well he's been playing. He only has a line of 7 on PrizePicks, and I've been projected for over 13 points, which again, massive edge, why I really like him. He bats 500 in his limited sample against Cole Irvin, which is great. On top of that, Acuna plays very well against him, and so does Marcell Ozuna to some degree. He's pretty good against him, and so does Matt Olson. So again, all these guys around Austin Riley who are going to be hopefully getting on base and driving in runs. It's all the reasons why you like Austin Riley in this matchup. You can see the only real issue is the pitch val, where he hasn't been too good against the pitches that Cole Irvin throws. Let's take a look at it right here. So he throws a pretty good fastball. After that, if he gets off-speed pitches, the advantage is in Austin Riley's favor, and he has been playing super well. You can see, right, 13 points over his last 14 and 14.5 over his last 7. I do like Austin Riley a lot today, and I think he's worthy of a core play. Now, someone who is definitely going to be a core play back again, the man is back, and we're taking him, Bryce Harper. Ever since Joe Girardi got fired, the Phillies have been on fire. They're in Milwaukee today, which is a neutral ballpark, but Jason Alexander has not been playing overly well. You can see that Bryce Harper has the advantage in the pitch department and will probably crush Jason Alexander overall. 19 points over his last 7 days, 13.27 over his last 14, and 11 overall in the season. I've been projected for almost 16 points. Yes, 8.5 is a very lofty projection for Bryce Harper, but overall, he is just playing at such a high level right now. I am willing to run the risk with Bryce Harper at this high total because I think he's in a great matchup, and I think he's going to smash today. I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot to ask, but honestly, there's one guy I trust more than anybody. It is Bryce Harper, and in the past, I've told you when he gets hot, he's been on another level this season, in particularly MVP form. Bryce Harper has been so good, and I'm willing to run the risk with Harper today. Even at 8.5, I think he's in a great spot, great matchup against a bad pitcher, and extremely hot, which makes him very easy. It makes him a little bit easier to take overall. Now, Wilson Contreras, another player who is really heating up right now, 13.83 over his last 7 days, up against Kyle Bradish, who is pretty bad, to be, if we're just being honest. He's been getting lit up almost every single game, and so you see the P-Val factor. He's getting crushed right now. We saw him get crushed by Boston. We saw him get crushed by a few other teams recently. Whether it's the fastball or the slider, Wilson Contreras should have no issue with Kyle Bradish, but overall, again, the issue with this one is the weather. The Baltimore weather seems like it's going to be okay. I was looking at the reports earlier from Kevin Roth, and he says it's a maybe. It's probably not going to get rained out. Could be delayed, so we could see a bit more bullpen action from both sides, honestly. But Contreras is in a really good spot if he does bat second. I'm projected for 12.87 points with a PrizePicks line of only 7. He is a good flex option. The only issue really is the ballpark. If it's wet, if there's all these things, it just kind of limits the doubles, the home runs, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not all in on Contreras, but I do think there's a lot of good things that happen. And I do think this is a spot where Chicago could get the best where Chicago could get the best of Baltimore and get a win today because Kyle Bradish has not been very good this season. So those are the kind of the overs we're looking at right now. The core plays I really do like are Brandon Drury. I also really like Austin Riley for the most part, and Bryce Harper. I'd be willing to throw in some Jock Peterson, be willing to throw in some Votto, maybe on Pham. But overall, I think Bryce and Drury is who I want to build around. I'd be willing to throw in some Contreras, some Riley. Julio is a maybe, but I think Drury and Harper are the two guys I really, really like. As you can see, right, just kind of going back and circling back a little bit, you see Gilbert, obviously awful. You have the park factor. The P-Val factor is okay, but it's not negative, which is always good. And then for Harper, obviously, positives across the board, super hot hitter, lots of things to like. And then same thing with Riley. If Riley was going to be your last core play, the only issue really is the pitch factor, but he does hit 500 off Irvin, so I'm not too concerned. And on top of that, I know that the Atlanta hitters also hit very well off him, so a lot of good things to look at with Austin Riley in that sense. So let's get into the unders now. So we have Kevin Kiermeier, a player who's averaging 3.27 points over his last 14 days and 0.6 over his last 7 days. Dude has been straight awful. So again, you see his line on PrizePicks of 6. His projection that I have for him is 2.88, which is basically saying he may get a hit, he may draw a walk, but that's about it. An edge of minus 52%, one of the highest that I've ever found on PrizePicks. And I think it's worth taking a shot, right? I do think there's a world where Kevin Kiermeier, you know, he's saying he's going to bat first, but if he doesn't bat first, maybe he's batting towards the bottom of the lineup because he's not playing very well. And that, again, makes his line have an even better shot of going under because he's not going to be getting as many at-bats, less chances to score points. Giancarlo Stanton, you can see here, not necessarily projected to be in the lineup right now. He just came back, averaging 2.5 points over his last 7 days, 1.6 over his last 14. We'll see with Stanton. You know, the big thing with him is that, of course, he can go over. It's not that he can't go over. You see having a projection of 3.46, but coming off of injury, this is one of the things you can take advantage of sometimes on PrizePicks. They give a guy like Stanton a very high line at 7.5 because they don't want to give him a low line where people can attack it. But when you give him such a high line for a dude who's coming back basically getting you a walk or a hit in the games he's been playing so far, that's still something you can take advantage of. And while he can get hot, we don't know exactly who the starter's going to be for Minnesota as of yet, or at least my system is not pulling that starter just yet. There is a world where he does go under, but I would much rather prefer to go after Yoan Moncada, a guy with a lot of swing and miss stuff, a guy who's been struggling up against Mitch White, who's been a much more than above average pitcher for the Dodgers this season. I have him projected for 2.1 points. You see as well the pitch factor also in his favor, much like it is for against Kevin Kiermeier, and he's also projected for 6. So again, if you want to attack some of these unders, have some fun, sweat them out with me, Kevin Kiermeier, Yoan Moncada could be two guys who do go under today, and I think I'd be willing to run the risk on those two guys as a potential play. So we talked about Brandon Drury, we talked about Austin Riley is another great option, Bryce Harper, who I love, Contreras, who is good, but you do have the weather concerns. Then if you want to get spicy, you got Julio Rodriguez and Jock Peterson as a guy that I do like as a potential core play. But if you're worried about the BVP history, like I mentioned, then maybe you avoid him. But I think that whether it's Jock or Riley, that would be the closest guy I'd say to a third option for a core play with Drury and Harper. Whether it's Jock or Riley, I think both are in good spots. I think overall, I'd probably pick Riley first as the third guy and Jock as the fourth. But I think both are in really good spots. Like Marquez should get lit up. Whether it's Yastrzemski, whether it's Wilmer Flores, all the Giants hit Yerm Marquez very, very well. And I believe all of them hit like over 300 against him. So it's like, it's insane. Jock Peterson is really the only one who doesn't. And for whatever reason, I don't know why he doesn't, but it could be big trouble for Marquez today. And that's why you see on PrizePicks his total for pitcher fantasy score is so low. He will probably throw a lot of innings because I believe he's gone at least 5 innings in each of his last 4 starts. Colorado's been just letting him go out there, keep throwing it, no matter how many runs he allows. They keep letting him out there. And like I mentioned, there are a few unders. I'd probably stay away from Stanton, but Kiermeier and Moncada do look good as well. So as always, if you tail, give them hell, and if we fail, don't bail. I'll be back tomorrow dropping more MLB picks. Drury, Harper, Riley, Peterson, J-Rod, and then if you want to under, you got Kiermeier and Moncada. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you drop me a like if you like this video and subscribe for future content, and I'll be back tomorrow. I'm out. Peace.